everybody, welcome to my kitchen. You are rather honoured today because normally I don't allow anyone in my kitchen. Well, certainly not when anything is happening. But I'm making an exception because I'm going to make a traditional Cornish pasty or pasty. I can't really say pasty because my mother, who taught me to make these, was not a Cornish lady. In fact, she came from the home counties north of Watford in Hertfordshire. So when she came to Cornwall when she was 17 and loved it so much that she never left again, she decided that she was always going to call it a Cornish pasty. So I'm afraid that's what I call it. However, pasty or pasty doesn't really matter. I think the result is the same. Now, my mother was terribly fond of Cornwall, and when she started making her Cornish pasties, she had instruction from her Cornish mother-in-law, who I think must have taught her well, because eventually she made the most excellent Cornish pasties, in fact enough to please a real Cornishman like my father. I seem to have always known how to make them, I suppose learned at my mother's knee or kitchen table, so I find there's no mystique to it. But I thought it would be rather nice just to do it and see whether I could show other people what I do. But it's good for a laugh anyway. Now, the main ingredients, as everybody must know, are potatoes, meat, beef, onions and swede. And all this is wrapped up in a pastry case. So when we've made the pastry, then of course we have to get down to the job of preparing the vegetables. I think perhaps I ought to show you the vegetables when we get there. But really there's nothing very difficult at all in making a Cornish pasty. I'm afraid that my mother never mastered the flat egg. Which she's passed on to me. However, it all tastes the same. So I hope that you will find it interesting. We will now get to the sharp end and you'll see what we do. Well, I think I'll start off by showing you the ingredients that we use for Cornish pasty. Well, what I use is braising steak. This is how I buy it. It's not a very expensive cut. It's not the cheapest. But I cheat and I tenderize it. I start off with it frozen, and as soon as it has started to defrost, I cut it into little pieces like that. And then I sprinkle on some meat tenderizer, about a dessert spoonful, stir it in and leave it for about an hour. I don't know if it helps, but that's what I do. So there we have the meat. Then we have the onion, which is simply onion chopped up. And then we have the swede, which I cut up on a chopping board to little pieces like that. Actually, the Cornish people carefully sit and chop it up by hand. It takes a long time. However, when it comes to the potatoes, that's what I do. And I have an old-fashioned knife and I just chip them like this, because I think that is the best way to do it for a pasty. Doesn't take too long with a very sharp knife. And we have a nice pot of potato all ready to go in. And that's all we need really, some salt and pepper and some patience. So, shall we continue the next stage? So here we are, we come to the very last stage. Fingers crossed, we roll out the pastry. This should be quite pliable really. Doesn't need to be very, very dry. Take some rough handling. Not too thin. It's got a lot of work to do. I should think about like that. And I take a plate, pop it on, and cut around. Now I like to slightly roll it into an oval. I don't think it's correct, but that's what I do. And I fold it, and just a little bit more than half, turn it back over the rolling pin, my very old rolling pin which I've had since 1955, and moisten the edge like that. Now we can put the vegetables in, and I start with some potato. I suppose if you wanted to, you could mix all the vegetables up first and put them in together, but I think this is how the Cornish do it. Potatoes first, and salt and pepper, if I can find it. Right, and so we have some salt and pepper, very important. And the next thing that I put on is some onion. Where is it? There it is. Now we put it on like this. You can throw it in any way you like really, and in whatever quantities. So that's the next bit. Then I shall put on some meat. As much as you want, or as little as you want, or if you're vegetarian, none at all. And a little more salt and pepper. Now the last thing is the swede. A good handful. You can't make a Cornish pasty without swede. It's unheard of. Except in the case of my son Ian, who doesn't like swede and doesn't like onion, and so we have to make him just meat and potato, which is disgusting. And then we come to close it up, which is the complicated bit really, because it wants to fall out. So we have to keep pushing bits back. As I'm left-handed, I do it this way round so that I can operate with my left hand. It's a matter of choice which way you do it. Some flour, and then you start to close it, which is quite simple. and simply roll the edge over. You should see the Cornish ladies do this, it's amazing. It's done in seconds. This pastry has gone a little too warm. Normally it should be very cold, straight from the fridge. Now that is how you normally see a Cornish pasty. But in my case, I'm going to just move it up, put the roll near the top, because I think it helps to stop it from bursting. They do have a habit of doing that. So there we are. Not difficult and quite easy to handle, pick up, to throw about. And the best thing to do with this now is to put it into the fridge for half an hour before you cook it. It needs a little bit of ventilation, so we'll have to find a knife. There we are. Poke some holes in it and find something on which to cook it. Quite easy to pick up. You can roll it around, you can throw it about. And the last thing, just brush it over with a little milk. There we are. And after half an hour in the fridge, that's ready for the oven. And there we are, the finished product. And it looks very appetizing. Now that one was a total success. Just occasionally you can have a little disaster where they start to burst open. But not to worry, all you have to do is have a little patch of the pastry, pop it on, smooth it down, and pop it back in the oven. It's going to happen in the first 15 minutes if it does happen, so you need to keep an eye on the pasty from the beginning until about 15 minutes. If it's okay then, well, no problem. You put it in at about 200 degrees centigrade, and then later on, about 20 minutes later, you can lower the heat and continue cooking for about 45 minutes, probably around about 150. But you really do have to just keep an eye on it and see what you think. And there we are. Cornish pasties and no problems at all. I hope you have the same success. And I think Alan's done a wonderful job. Bye for now. Say goodbye, Alan.
Goodbye.